My boss fired me after I built the software that literally runs his entire company. His reason? We need someone with more vision. That's what he said in the final meeting, just before HR handed me the severance paperwork and politely escorted me out. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice or defend myself. I just nodded, thanked him for the opportunity, and walked out of the building with my laptop bag and the weight of 18 months of work packed neatly into my thoughts. My name is Darren. I'm a systems architect by trade, a builder by instinct, and, apparently, a threat to my own employer. Funny how that works. You'd think creating something that powers an entire operation, inventory, payroll, logistics, client portals, would make you indispensable. But in reality, when your work becomes critical and people who outrank you don't understand how or why, that's when they start feeling uncomfortable. It didn't start that way. I was hired to clean up a mess. When I joined the company, they were running 5 disconnected legacy systems held together with duct tape and weekend patches. Every department was working in silos. Finance had no idea what ops were doing. Sales couldn't access delivery data without going through someone in IT, and customer complaints were stacking up because everything took too long to process. They brought me in with a clear objective: fix it. Build something that makes it all talk to each other. I wasn't given a team, just a corner desk, a slow laptop, and the usual generic encouragement. Take initiative. We trust your judgment. I spent 3 months analyzing every workflow, interviewing every department head, sitting quietly in the background of meetings, scribbling notes in margins, building something from nothing. Not just software, but a system that would actually make sense. I didn't want another Frankenstein setup. I wanted one seamless platform, one that could scale, that could adapt. When I finally pitched the architecture, modular design, internal APIs, a real-time dashboard, there were some blank stares, some half-hearted nods, and one executive who asked, "Will this run on Excel?" I remember smiling politely. Number it will replace Excel. They approved it, reluctantly, budgeted a fraction of what it should have cost, gave me a pair of junior developers, both recent grads. Good kids, quick learners. But it meant I was working late nights, writing most of the back end myself, fixing bugs while also mapping out integrations with vendors who barely had documentation. I didn't complain. That's not how I operate. I just got to work. 6 months later, we had a working prototype. 9 months in, we rolled out phase 1. The day we flipped the switch, productivity jumped 20%. Order fulfillment got faster. Customer support queues dropped. Finance could reconcile in hours instead of days. At our quarterly meeting, the COO clapped me on the back. "Finally," he said, "something that actually works." That was the first and last time anyone in upper management said anything to me directly. After that, the platform became the backbone of the business. No one said much, but everyone used it. It ran quietly in the background, processing transactions, syncing data, handling requests. People forgot it hadn't always been there. Then the new VP of technology came in. He was one of those guys who talks more than he listens. All energy, no depth. The kind who throws around buzzwords like machine learning, disruption, and paradigm shift without knowing what they mean. Within a week, he started questioning everything I'd built. "This isn't scalable," he said, without looking at the load numbers. "We need a more modern interface," he added, pointing to the clean, minimal UI that had reduced training time by 40%. Eventually, it became clear. He wasn't interested in improving anything. He wanted to replace it. Or at least replace the guy who built it, so he could take ownership and put his stamp on it. It wasn't about the system, it was about control. I kept my distance, didn't argue. I figured my work would speak for itself. Numbers don't lie, and the system was working flawlessly. But then came the performance review. HR scheduled it, said it was routine. I wasn't worried. My metrics were solid. Downtime was near zero. Uptime was nearly perfect. Users were satisfied. When I walked into the conference room, the VP was there. So was the head of HR. So was my direct manager, who couldn't even look me in the eye. They told me my role was being re-evaluated, that the company was moving in a different direction, that they were looking for someone more aligned with the future vision of the department. I asked one question, just one. What exactly does that mean? The VP leaned forward and said it again, slower, as if I didn't understand English the first time. We need someone with more vision. That was it. No feedback, no discussion. Just a quiet nudge toward the exit. They offered a 2-month severance package. I signed the papers, packed up my desk, left without sending a goodbye email. The strange thing, I wasn't angry, not yet. I was quiet, disappointed maybe, but not surprised. I'd seen it happen to others before. People who built good things and got pushed aside once the shiny object had served its purpose. I spent the next few weeks sleeping in, going for long walks, catching up on books I'd been too tired to read. I didn't even check in on the system. I figured they'd let it run on autopilot. Then came the call. It was a Monday, mid-morning. I was making coffee when my phone buzzed. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. "Hey, Darren?" The voice was tight, strained. It's Mark from IT. Listen, we're having a bit of a situation with the system." I didn't say anything, just waited. Yeah, the whole back end's down. No one can access payroll or logistics. Finance says the data feed is broken. And we don't know how to fix it." I asked him what had changed. He hesitated. We tried implementing some new features the VP wanted. External plugin stuff, third-party APIs. Something broke. Of course it did. He kept talking, asking if I could just take a look. Not officially, of course, just as a favor, just for a few hours. I thought about it. Thought about all the nights I'd stayed late, all the weekends I'd worked through, all the hours I spent making sure that system was bulletproof. And then I asked the one question I knew he didn't want to hear. "Is he the one who called me?" Silence. "No," Mark said. "He doesn't know I'm calling, but people are getting nervous, real nervous." I told him I'd think about it. Then I hung up, and for the first time in a long while, I smiled. I stood there in my kitchen, coffee going cold in my hand, and let the silence stretch. It's strange what you feel in moments like that. Not pride, not satisfaction. Something quieter, more patient, like the tide slowly turning in your favor after being pulled under for too long. They wanted the system. They just didn't want the person behind it. That was always the issue. After I hung up, I didn't rush to my laptop. I didn't dig through old files or start scanning code. I just sat at the table, finished my coffee, and thought about how I got here in the first place. You see, when I built that platform, I didn't just write software. I translated dysfunction into logic. Every feature had a reason. Every integration solved a problem someone had complained about for years, and I didn't do it for credit. I did it because I can't stand waste. Waste of time, of talent, of potential. There's a kind of elegance to systems that just work. But now the people running the place had managed to break what they didn't understand, and they were calling the one person they assumed would just come back quietly to save them from their own mistakes. The thing about being underestimated is, it gives you clarity. Around noon, I finally replied. Not to the VP, not to my former manager, just to Mark, the guy who called me, the one still in the trenches. I kept it short. Mark, appreciate the heads up. I'd be open to a short-term consulting agreement if there's interest from leadership. If they want help, they know where to reach me. Best, Darren. That was it. No emotion, no anger, just structure. 3 hours later, I got the email. This time, it was from HR. Polite, formal, and just vague enough to avoid admitting they'd made a mistake. They were exploring the possibility of a limited engagement and wanted to understand my availability and rate. I didn't respond immediately, not because I was playing games, but because I wanted to be intentional. When you've been dismissed by someone, there's a right way to come back, if you come back at all. Later that evening, my phone rang again. This time, it wasn't Mark. It was the VP himself. Hey, Darren, listen, I wanted to reach out personally. I let him talk, let him fumble through the awkward phrasing. He said they hit a snag, and that some of the recent changes caused unexpected issues. He never used the word crash, but I could hear it in his tone. He said he valued the system I'd built and wanted to re-engage my expertise to stabilize things. I asked one question. What changed? There was a pause. A short one, but it said everything. He finally said, we underestimated the complexity. I wanted to laugh, but I didn't. I just said, send over a formal agreement. I'll take a look. The next morning, I got the paperwork. Short-term contract, 5 figures, 1 week, strictly advisory. I signed it. But here's the thing. I didn't rush in to save them. When I logged in remotely, the logs told me everything I needed to know. They'd overridden key services, plugged in third-party APIs without validation layers, and basically bypassed every safeguard I'd written. It wasn't just carelessness. It was ego. They wanted to mold it into something flashy, something that looked impressive in a PowerPoint deck. It was like watching someone take a well-tuned engine and pour soda into the gas tank because they liked the fizz. I documented everything, line by line, sent a report with zero emotion, just facts. 2 hours later, I got a message from Mark. You have no idea how much this helps. Thank you. But I did. I knew exactly how much it helped, because I built the thing, and they broke it. The VP never responded directly, but over the next few days, I got emails from other departments. Quiet thank yous, follow-up questions. People I'd worked with before reaching out, saying how much smoother things were once the original logic was restored. It wasn't just about the software, it was about trust. And now, even without a title or a nameplate on the door, people were coming to me for answers. On the last day of the contract, I submitted my final recommendations. I made it clear. This was a one-time engagement. If they wanted long-term support, we'd need to renegotiate under different terms. I wasn't going to be a silent partner or a fallback option. If they wanted me back, it would be on equal footing, or not at all. I didn't hear anything for a week. Then the email came, this time from the CEO. He asked if I'd be willing to meet, not virtually, in person. I agreed. We met at a quiet cafe near the office. He looked tired, not angry, just worn down. He told me what I already knew, that the board wasn't happy, that the disruption had cost them a major client, that they'd spent a fortune trying to fix things that were never broken. Then he said something that caught me off guard. You were right, we didn't understand what we had. I didn't say anything, just listened. He asked if I'd consider returning. Not to the same role, but as an independent consultant with oversight authority on all technical operations. It sounded tempting. Better pay, more autonomy, direct access to the executive team, but I said no. not out of spite, but because I realized something in those weeks away. I didn't want to work in a place where clarity was punished, where solutions were seen as threats. I wanted to build again, but this time for people who actually respected the work. We parted on good terms, no drama, no burned bridges. A few weeks later, I launched my own consulting firm. Nothing flashy, just a name, a small site, and my email address. The first client? A company I'd never worked with before, but the referral came from someone in that old office. Quiet recommendation. A short message. He built the system that ran everything. You'll want to talk to him. And they did. When the first new client signed with me, I didn't celebrate. Not because I wasn't proud, but because I'd learned something. In business, momentum isn't built on moments. It's built on consistency. Quiet, steady, deliberate consistency. That first client wanted me to audit their back-end infrastructure and recommend improvements before a major funding round. Small team, ambitious founders, solid product. And the best part? They listened. They didn't interrupt. They didn't pretend to know more. They just asked clear questions and gave me room to answer. By the end of the second week, I had rebuilt their reporting engine, flagged 2 major security gaps, and implemented a scalable API layer that cut their hosting costs by 40%. They called it magic. I called it what happens when the right people are in the right roles, and respected for it. Word spread faster than I expected. Within 2 months, I was fully booked. Not with large, bloated enterprises, but lean companies. Startups with traction. Mid-sized businesses hitting growing pains. All of them had one thing in common. They didn't want someone flashy. They wanted someone who could listen, fix what was broken, and build systems that didn't fall apart the second someone left the room. By month 3, I'd hired 2 people, not contractors, full-time employees. I trained them the way I wished someone had trained me. Not just in code, but in how to see a problem through. Not over-engineer it, not decorate it, just solve it. And then, one afternoon, about 6 months after I left the company I'd helped build from the inside out, I got another call. This time, it wasn't from the VP, not from HR, not even the CEO. It was from one of the senior engineers I used to mentor, someone who had stayed after I was let go. He sounded cautious at first. "Hey Darren, I hope I'm not bothering you. I wanted to give you a heads up." Turns out, things hadn't improved much. After my brief return as a consultant, they'd gone back to their old ways, flash over function, buzzwords over stability. And now, a major investor had pulled out after a failed system rollout. One that relied on the enhanced version of the platform I originally built. He didn't say it, but I could hear it in his voice. He was looking for a way out. I told him to send over his resume. One by one, others followed. Not just developers, but product people, analysts, even a former client liaison who'd once called me too focused on edge cases. Funny how things change when the edges start cracking. Within a year, my little consulting firm wasn't so little anymore. We weren't a startup exactly, but we weren't a faceless agency either. We worked quietly, precisely, built platforms that worked in real-world conditions. We said no more than we said yes. And we only took on clients who were serious about getting it right. One morning, I walked into our small office. We had moved into a clean, open space above a quiet bookstore downtown, and found a letter on my desk. No stamp, no envelope, just a folded sheet with the company's old logo at the top. It was from the CEO. Not an apology, not a job offer, just a line. "I think we both knew you built more than a system. You built something we didn't understand until it was gone." I stared at the letter for a long time. He was right, but here's what he didn't say, what he maybe didn't even realize. I hadn't just built their system, I'd built mine, piece by piece, the way it was supposed to be built. It wasn't just about software anymore, it was about the people, the decisions, the moments I used to think were losses but turned out to be shifts. Redirections. Like the floor giving out beneath you, only to find you were being lowered, not dropped. And that old company, it's still running. Still struggling. New faces, new buzzwords, same confusion. They built themselves around image. I built around trust. Years from now, no one will remember the feature set. No one will quote the line count or the deployment architecture. But they'll remember the reliability, the confidence, the calm that came with knowing someone had thought it through. And when I look back at that day, the day I got that meeting invite, that HR message, that termination call, I don't feel bitterness. I feel gratitude. Because sometimes the best thing that can happen is being pushed out of a place that couldn't see your value. It forces you to find people who do. And when they do, you don't just rebuild, you rise.